Hi, moms and dads and kids. I'm going to go over our book in a box project, show you some of the paperwork that the kids have, just so you know what should have come home, and show you some examples. So the first thing is the book in a box project directions. So those went home a couple weeks ago. On the back, there's a rubric so the kids know how their project will be scored. And what we did in class was we looked at these 3 projects and 3 others over there. We went through them step by step, and we even graded one with a rubric so the kids could understand the expectations. Students were also given a page to keep notes while they're reading their book, so that they have these to go back to help them with their project. They also have a story map so that they can write out the title, author, the setting, the characters, the main problem, and the solution to the problem, because they'll need that information for their projects also. So these are projects from a few years ago. This student read How to Eat Fried Worms by Thomas Rockwell. They covered a box with a grocery bag, used some crayons on it to make it look like a wooden crate, because children in the story, characters in the story, How to Eat Fried Worms, sat at a wooden crate in a garage while the character ate his worms. Now inside we have some objects. So the student made a little paper bag because in the story, the character has to gather up some worms and puts them in a paper sack for another character's mom. This is an example of a card. The card shows the object, that's the title. And then the card describes how the bag played a part in the story. Now this card, it did not get all the points possible because it doesn't mention a character or a story element. It doesn't mention character trait, setting, conflict resolution, or theme. And every card has to mention, one of those story elements. There was money involved in this story, so the student took some play money, glued it to a card. There was dirt involved because students had to dig up worms. This student crushed up some Oreo cookies, and then there's also a Lego guy in there with a shovel. And these students allowed me to keep these projects with parent permission. I normally don't keep projects, but I needed some samples and saved these from years ago. So the student focused on the shovel, but the dirt, is related to that. In the story, the character put sauce on the worms. So this student got into the family junk drawer, wherever they keep all their sauce packets, and put those in a baggie. It was very appropriate, good connection. Now the student wanted to mention the building where the characters were at most of the time, but you can't necessarily put a building in a box, didn't have a toy. So they drew a picture, and that's perfectly fine. To do so, pictures must be neatly drawn, straight lines, there needs to be color. This is on an index card, so it's not on just plain paper. Some worms, some gummy worms. So that's just an example of the items that went with that story and how they went with the story. Here's another project. This student read a book called From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. Notice that the title is on the outside of these boxes. That's one of the requirements. Also, the author's name and then the student's name needs to be on the outside of the box. So this student decorated the inside of the box a little bit. This student used all pictures, and that's fine. The pictures are on some cardboard, probably from, I think, a cereal box that makes great cardboard. And they wrote on them what the object was. So we had a museum, we have a fountain, we have an angel statue, because there's an angel statue in the story. The museum's the setting. There's a fountain. In this story, the kids ran away from home, and they get cleaned up in a fountain every day. The one child that ran away put all his clothes in his violin case. So that's why there's a violin case. They took a taxi when they ran away. Story takes place in New York City. So we have that. This is not real money. This is a photocopy of real money, and it's, again, stuck to some cardboard. So, and then these are the students' cards that went with them. I have a separate video focusing on the cards, so I'm not showing the cards so much right now. So notice too that the outside of the box is completely covered in paper. That's a requirement. That box does have to be covered. And I am providing construction paper, boxes if needed, index cards, all that stuff is provided. Now, you don't have to use shoe boxes. I've had successful projects done with cereal boxes, and this one's done with an oatmeal container. So I'm going to dump these objects out so you can see them. This is my last sample. This has the rubric sample that I did with the kids in it also. So in this story, the character does a lot of sewing with their grandma. So, and again, I got permission from parents and students to keep these. I don't normally keep these. Normally students take everything home, so if they put something in the box that needs to come home, it will come home. So we have a little journal and a pen because the character kept a diary. And then the other things in here are pictures. And everything has to have a card. This student did well. They underlined the story element on the card, so it was really obvious to me that there was a story element mentioned in their paragraphs. Theme on that one, conflict on that one, plot event on that one. So those are some samples of some projects. Let me know if you have any questions.